Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today we are talking with Lorenzo Sanchez Mangas. Hi, Lorenzo. How are you?
Hello, Bent. I'm very well here in Madrid, sunny Madrid.
It's sunny Madrid. Well, it's great to talk to someone in Madrid. Lorenzo is the managing partner at WIF Capital. WIF Capital is a really interesting investment platform specializing in greenfield infrastructure with a particular focus on water and sanitation, as well as sustainability and health in small to medium-sized projects. We'll be talking about WIF Capital, but before we get into that, I'd love to go through more about your background, Lorenzo. You've worked at some of the most incredible companies in the world, whether it be Barclays, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs. It seems like you've seen it all. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Well, I'm on the wrong side of 50. I was going to say the right side, but it's the wrong side. I have 4 wonderful daughters. I live in Madrid now, but to be honest with you, nearly half my life I lived away from Spain. I went to boarding school in England for 6 years. I did my undergrad at Boulder, Colorado. I had a blast there. Then I was in Paris at the Sorbonne for a year, and I started working at Barclays in Madrid. And after 3 and a bit years, I went to Kellogg to do my MBA in Chicago. And while there, I did a stint at McKinsey. And after that, I preferred something more intense. So I went to Goldman and I started trading there on the equity side, which was very fancy at the time. And run the Spanish, the Iberian book. And then when we went to sectors, it was the financials. Wow, time flies. They asked me to go.
This is what happens when you get to the other side of 50.
Will happen to you too.
Exactly.
And they asked me after nearly 4 years to go to the sales side because there was a little bit of turmoil at the time in the bank, and they needed someone with technical expertise, but at the same time, they thought I was a natural for selling. But so there you are. So I spent the next 8 years, all the rest of my career at Goldman Sachs on the sales side, focusing on running the what we used to call the garlic belt, which was Southern Europe, on the equity and derivative side, but focused mainly on the Iberian side. Although I had some clients in London, etc. And my family had already come to Spain in 2007. And although I wanted to leave, they asked me to stay. And so I was, going on and off Madrid, London every week. It was a nightmare. And to be able to work with the family was even worse, actually, to be honest with you. But anyway, it worked. And when I came back to Spain, there wasn't really anything that as interesting on my side of the business that I could do, because really you have to be in bigger hubs, London, New York.
Right.
So I was convinced by the head of UBS in Spain was a great guy on the private banking side, to start working for them. And I worked for the super ultra clients we had at the bank, helping them mainly on their investments, but also to rearrange their portfolio, because after 2008 and the debt crisis we had in Europe, it was a bit of a nightmare. So I helped, but I mean, I wasn't the only one who tried to realign their investments and their portfolios. It was very interesting. And on the latter part, later on, I moved to looking more at alternative investments, funding some really interesting funds, debt funds, particularly in Spain. And that's how WIF came about in my head with 2 other people, my colleagues and my partners and friends, who had how can I say, they were looking for something that would be worth it for them, not only on a professional side, but also give them fulfillment on a personal side.
Yeah.
That's how WIF came about.
Yeah, and I mean, I see that WIF Capital is working on really critical areas: water and sanitation, general greenfield infrastructure. But these are areas that seem to all get bucketed into that sustainability heading, the general sustainability area, but
Yeah,
something that has gained a lot of importance right now. So tell us a little bit more about WIF Capital and what you guys are working on.
I mean, like you said before, I mean, WIF Capital is an environmental infrastructure investment platform focused on water in the region of Latin America, or to be more precise, Mexico, all the way down to Argentina, in greenfield and brownfield projects. But the reality is that we also always work in conjunction with an industrial partner, whether we have an agreement with them on a broader side or just for a specific project, but they bring the technical expertise, we bring the financial expertise, as well as the capabilities to fund the projects. Because like you said before, we focus on medium to small size projects, always on the equity side or quasi-equity, anything from mezzanine to convertible, because we prefer that risk, the equity risk, and our clients as well. Now, with all, when you look at the kind of projects that are easy to fund, you're talking about larger projects that all the institutions and the supranational institutions are looking at: 500, 300, 400 million, 1 billion, water, which they don't have that many, but there are. But the reality is that to close the infrastructure gap, like the United Nations is looking for, with all these SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, 2030, you need to focus on medium to small size projects. Otherwise, that infrastructure gap is never going to close.
Hallelujah. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, and certainly we should praise these large projects because they are important as well. But unless we build that kind of grassroots, those small to medium sized projects, you're absolutely right. We're going to have tons of challenges meeting the SDG goals. I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm excited. So tell me a little bit about some of the projects that you guys are working on.
Well, we have so many NDAs signed.
Well, you could speak in generalities.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an overview of one of them that I think is very interesting, and a lot of the supranational entities have been looking at, particularly, which is in the Amazon jungle, in a given country, there are hundreds of settlements, with inhabitants from, let's say, a few hundred to 1,000, that have no safe water or sanitation. And the fact that we are going to be able to fund this project and bring these capabilities to the people that live there is going to make their life worthwhile. Well, it's worthwhile already, but I mean, it's going to change it in a very substantial way. And at the same time, I'm just going to give you an example of how impactful these investments are. The infant mortality rate in this area, but you can extrapolate it to anywhere in the Amazon jungle, is close to 75%.
Wow.
When you have water, safe water and sanitation, you're looking at around 25%.
Wow.
So this is still huge, from where you come and from where I come from. It's ridiculous, but that's the reality Latin America is living now. And obviously it was worse years ago, and it's getting better, but it still is way behind the curve. And I think that by helping fund these projects and bringing them to the people that can actually fund them, we are doing a good job. I mean, a job that is obviously on a financial side is good for us, but I think we're doing this not only on the financial side because we could be doing many other things, but also because it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, so I think that the topic of sanitation is quite an interesting one. I've read quite a bit about the work that the Gates Foundation has been focused on in that area. My understanding is that they're more focused around Asia and Africa. So I don't know if, yeah.
No, it's true. That is true. I mean, I think Latin America people don't see it as bad as the two areas that you mentioned, and it's probably true. But it's still, the inequalities and the differences are so huge. I mean, I'm going to give you a few pointers just so you get, and the viewers hopefully get a big an idea of what's happening. You know, Latin America has 33% more or less of the fresh water in the world, yet nearly 75%, over 75% of the population doesn't have access to safe water sanitation. And 35% doesn't even have access to safe water.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's in Latin America. Obviously, you go to Africa, it's worse.
Right.
But there is so much to do. And we, being Spanish, made a lot of sense for us. And obviously with the connection that Spain has with Latin America,
absolutely,
to focus on this particular region, just because it has a lot to grow and a lot to be done. And I think obviously it's getting traction. I think, like you said, sustainability is getting traction all over the place. But I think Latin American people are getting their act together now.
Yeah, I'd just be curious. It's such a fascinating topic because, and it's such a timely topic. You know, in the U.S., we've seen this current president, as well as the last president, really struggle with the solution of what to do with, really immigration coming in, from the southern side of the border. And really, I think it almost boils down to the areas that you're focused on, which is that those countries just don't have opportunity. They also don't have a lot of infrastructure, right? They don't have a lot of infrastructure. And so it sounds like some of the projects that you're able to move forward will help alleviate that, at least to take some of the first steps.
Exactly. I mean, when you think about all the things that have happened and that different leaders of the world have said about immigration, etc. In the case of, for example, the United States, I think that the best way to, you say, build a wall is help the different countries, the people in all these countries that are immigrating into the US. How can you do that? By investing and making their life worthwhile there, so they don't need to move. And I don't think you need to, go overboard, but you need the basics, and like I was telling you with the few pointers that I gave you earlier, there is a lot to be done for people to feel comfortable and not move. Until that happens, I think there's going to be immigration all over the place. We see it in Spain all the time.
And I think the area that you're focusing on with WIF Capital, which are these small to medium-sized projects, is a very needed, necessary, and acutely probably in need of area as well, because sometimes we forget. I think the heroes of the story are always the big guys, right? The heroes of the story, right?
I don't mind, to be honest with you. I don't care at all. I mean, I'm happy because if big projects get done nowadays, I think it gives a lot of publicity, and hopefully people see and listen and learn, and they see where the needs are. Because that is always going to be so. But look, for example, 80% more or less of the population of Latin America is urbanite. But the other 20% isn't. But the other 20%, they're forgotten. I mean, a lot of people in cities are forgotten, but the others are in the hands of God, to be honest with you. And I think more impetus has to be put there. And hopefully with the new changes the US is making in their NGOs, own government NGOs towards Latin America, this can turn around, because to be honest with you, I think the Chinese and even the Russians have made more headway in the last, even since Obama, to be honest with you. And right now, when you look at the different countries, the Chinese have done a really good job, and everybody listens to them.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And I think so you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a ton more to do, and and certainly helping resolve some of these infrastructure challenges will play a critical role. But I'm imagining that the pandemic must have really thrown another dimension or level of difficulty to the efforts. And I just would be curious to hear how the pandemic impacted the projects that WIF Capital is working on, and also maybe how you've been able to work through it yourself.
Well, first of all, on the case of WIF Capital, what we have seen at the beginning, before all this happened, we had a great pipeline of greenfield projects, which is really what we prefer to focus on. But the reality is they all been delayed. A year and a half, 2 years, which is a long time. And let's see what happens, because there's turmoil all over the place. So that really impacted us. And in a sense, we had to reinvent ourselves while we wait for the greenfield projects to come about and focus on brownfield more. Because at the same time, there are a lot of industrial, not necessarily our partners, but industrials in Latin that are willing to sell, water treatment plants or desalination plants. And that is something that is makes sense to our investors. Right. Because one thing that water has, and I think people don't it's not that they don't understand it, is that they're focusing on different things. It's just that water obviously is a first necessity, but it's a highly impacting asset. When you look at it, it's among the most GDP decoupled asset classes you can find. It's linked from the economic cycle, and the cash flows are very stable. So I think on the aspect of WIF, it has impacted us. We had to reinvent ourselves a little bit, but hey, I was going to say some word I shouldn't say, but you need to grow from that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at different things while still working on some projects that we had, and even on newer greenfield projects, because obviously the greenfield projects take quite a while, not just to go through the different governments, because water is always going to be something where the different governments, local governments have a say, but also in a general perspective.
Yeah, so I completely understand that need for reinvention, and it sounds like you've found, I would say, an area to focus on that will allow you to really expand back into the greenfield area as that opens up again. But in terms of just running your business during this moment, how did you stay sane, and how have you at WIF Capital, how has the team survived through this moment?
Well, we have done okay, to be honest. We have done a lot of teleworking, like we say in Spain. How do you say it in the US? Is it also
remote? Remote seems to be the word that people refer to now. Remote work.
Yeah. I knew it wasn't coming up, the word I want to say, remote. So that has helped tremendously, and I think it has impacted us in many ways, because while at the same time traveling is very important for us, particularly the Latins, myself as well as the Latin Americans. We are guys that like to have the one-on-one.
Right.
Zoom or whatever application you use has helped us get things done that before I don't think we would have been able to do. It's true that we haven't been able to travel because most of the countries in Latin America have been shut down, to be honest with you. Maybe you could go to Mexico, for example, but all the other, Colombia, Peru, well, you can go to all of them if you want, but the problem is you're going to get back, if you know what I mean. You have to go on special flights. It's not easy. And I think it's opening up now with the vaccine. Sorry. So I'm optimistic about what's going to happen. I'm just glad that we can see light at the end of the tunnel, because I have a big terrace in my house, so I was able to not go absolutely crazy. And to be honest with you, I helped. I funded by myself, talking to some nuns that are close to my family, and I took 3-4 times a week during the state of alarm here in Madrid, food to families at risk that had over 4 children, sorry. And so that took, that made it, I was able to get out and see how tough it was for other people, and how lucky I am, literally. I mean, sometimes I came back and I was crying. I don't normally cry. That made me cry.
Yeah, it's been a moment that has challenged a lot of all of us, and it's great to see that WIF Capital and yourself have been able to help and provide at least some small support when needed, but also to really rethink how you're working. I'm curious to see how work will move forward. I'm married to a Spaniard, and I know how connected she is with her friends and her family. And it's so hard for her to not be with them physically, and yeah.
I mean, it's really the same for us. Even though, we had the remote and everything, and we talk every day among the 3 of us, the reality is that not being able to be at the office on a daily basis is not the best situation, because it's like when you're on a trading floor. I mean, the talking, the flow, the what's going on, what's happening, the fact that you can put 2 things together at the same moment, instead of maybe putting it, if you're lucky and you mention it when you have the Zoom or whatever, it's not the same. So I think that hampers the effort. But at the same time, we have learned a lot of things, and if we can get the mix right for the future, I think it would be incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I think the learning here will be amazing if we can. Also, I hope we remember what we've learned. That's going to be the key thing. A friend of mine runs sales for a large organization in Latin America, and he said before COVID, he was on planes constantly because all the managers demanded face-to-face meetings. And he said this year has been their best year ever from a business perspective. And he said he hasn't left his bedroom in Miami.
It's true. I mean, it's really true. I think also the necessity that you have makes things happen, because this would not have been able 2 years ago. It would just not have happened. But I think now that we all realize the necessities and the immediacy of the actions we take helps us get more comfortable and maybe make some decisions that we would not have been able to do before.
So let's look forward here. Let's think about this post-pandemic era that we're, knock on wood, hopefully entering. You highlighted earlier that the United Nations had issued out their SDGs, and those goals of sustainable development goals have shaped many NGOs, have shaped many organizations, many companies, enterprises, investment groups. I mean, are you hopeful for the near future that we're going to be able to, I would say, get back on track on some of those goals? Because I think right now we're my opinion, I think we're wildly behind in many of those areas.
Wildly behind. I agree with you, but I think I think the way people think now is changing, and I think that's what's important. The people, at the United Nations, at different financial institutions, at different NGOs, there is pressure now all over to make sustainable investments. And the fact that the people that dish out, to give a word, money have pressure to invest more on sustainable investments, as well as keep an eye on the people they invest with, and that they don't do what they shouldn't do. I think it's putting all of us in a better context for the future. And I really do think, and I hope, and I don't think I'm being optimistic, that there is something changing in the way we think now. Maybe it's because the pandemic made it even more relevant, but when we realized, how many things we're doing wrong, that sustainability is going to become something that can be achievable. I really don't think that, by 2030, we're going to be able to do a lot. But I think sometimes the change of attitude makes a lot. And maybe we cannot do it now. But human beings, when they become comfortable with something and it becomes part of their comfort zone, which I think sustainability is not there yet, but will, because it's all over the news, it's all over the papers, it's all over everything, So I think that's going to change attitudes, and is going to make people, how can I say, more going to think about it in a different way, whereby they will consider sustainable investment and development on an equal basis far more important. And even if it's a little bit worse, they would prefer to do that. And I have seen it already in some funds and in some family offices, whereby they want to make investments that maybe they don't have the returns they're looking for, although we do have those returns, but I'm talking in general, because they feel that, they are the ones that have to start making the changes. And I think that is so. You cannot ask, the people in the Amazon jungle to, like we were talking before, that don't even have access to safe water, to make the changes. I think that people that have the resources have to be the ones that take the first leap. And in that aspect, I think we're late, but I think it's better than nothing. And
maybe this was a wake-up call, and maybe this will allow us to embrace some of the ESG challenges that we all know exist and put those models in place and move forward. Lorenzo, thank you so much for joining us today on UNCAGED. We've been having a great conversation really about, I would say, a lot of the major problems that face our planet today, but really the key areas that WIF Capital is working on. WIF Capital is an investment platform specializing in greenfield and brownfield infrastructure with a particular focus on water and sanitation, as well as sustainability and health, which would be waste, mini hydros, and hospitals and small to medium-sized projects. We've been talking about the importance of those small and medium-sized projects to kind of create that groundswell moment that we need to see to tackle some of these global major issues. And clearly WIF Capital is playing a major role. Lorenzo, if someone wants to reach out to you, where's the best way for them to connect with you?
LinkedIn is fine.
Great. Well, we've been talking to Lorenzo Sanchez Mangas today, and I think what an insightful conversation this has been. Thank you so much for joining us on UNCAGED.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. We seem to have a lot of affinities together.
Cheers. Talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.